Spinning around. Okay, we're live. Okay, and I think this is episode 15. We didn't do our count beforehand.
No, that's right, but I think you're right.
Yeah, I think 15. It's about 15. So it's an open casket tonight. We've got a couple of things that we want to touch base on. But you actually spoke about this last week or the week before about men's fertility. Sperm counts being low.
Reducing sperm count. So there's really, a couple of issues. One is that testosterone levels are declining in men. This is something that has been seen for a long time. And as I mentioned previously, there was a lot of disbelief about it, partly because most of the evidence was coming from both testosterone and sperm count was coming from fertility clinics. And people thought that these were people who already had fertility problems. But we now know conclusively both sperm counts and testosterone are declining in men in the West. There's a possibility that it's environmental. In fact, I dare say it's likely to at least be part of the problem. There's something called pseudoestrogens in the environment at the moment that are released by plastics, and this could be having actually it's very likely having a detrimental effect on both men and women. But the effect on men would be presumably that testosterone is dropping, and there are also problems with sperm count. So there's some suggestion it may also in women be partly responsible for the earlier puberty in girls in particular that's been occurring over the last couple of generations. So serious problems. Very little is being done about it or being talked about it. But what's interesting is, and the reason that it came up again, is that actually in the last few days there have been a number of news articles. So this has been something I've been watching for quite a long time. Really, I haven't spoken about it enough. But interestingly enough, in the last few days, there do appear to have been a few articles in the mainstream media. So we may finally be seeing some society talking about this. And a related issue, of course, is the reduced fertility rate. So fertility rates are going down around the world. I'm currently preparing an article for A Voice for Men. Again, this is something I've been looking at for decades. But the developed world had low fertility for a long time, while the developing world had a much higher fertility rate. But in the last 20 years, the much of the developed world outside of Africa has started to join us in the low fertility rate. Now, feminists claim this is because of education of women. I would suggest that there are probably a variety of factors going on. If it's education, then I would say it's probably education of everyone, because it is true that people who are more affluent and more educated do tend to have less children. However, the rates are dropping across the board, except as I said for Africa, certain parts of Africa, and it's probably starting to drop a little bit fast. And this may actually be a problem. And basically, our entire economic system is dependent on and assumes growth. And within our lifetime, within my lifetime, and I'm closing in on 50, that could turn around, and we may see the world's population drop. And that's going to have a huge economic effect in a variety of different ways. It's really probably well outside the sort of scope of the stuff that we'll talk about. But this is a big problem again. And so here we have several problems: dropping birth rate, dropping sperm count, dropping testosterone levels in men. Are these things related? In what way are they related? We're looking at a really serious crisis for the species. This is something we need to be looking at and talking about.
I find it funny the feminists are saying it's because women are becoming educated.
Mm.
We've always known how children are made. So what are they educating us against?
Mm. People who are more affluent do have less kids, and there's a few reasons for that. One is that in poorer societies, on people who lived on farms, they would actually have kids because they needed the labour. We don't need the labour anymore. People now have kids for different reasons in many ways. But at the same time, that can only be part of the equation. And if it is affluence and education, I'd suggest, like I said, it's everybody's education, not just education of women. Because every time they mention that, virtually, it's like a knee-jerk reaction. Anytime this comes up, they say, oh, well, that's a result of education of women. But they never actually justify
it. Okay, so this actually leads us very well into one of our favourite feminists, Clementine Ford. Now, I'm going to have to read this off my phone, so bear with me. So this was posted up on DVAA's page, and it was from a follower of DVAA, and they posted this in regards to Clementine Ford. So it says, I wonder if Clementine Ford would care to explain to the boys why the judge gave custody of their biological mother, even after it was proven without a doubt that she'd severely neglected, abused, starved, threatened to drive them off a cliff, falsely accused the father of unspeakable things, falsely accused me of attacking her, locked them as small children outside, shot up heroin in front of them, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. I have all the paperwork and documents to show everything still. Why does a woman with extensive criminal history get custody over their father with no criminal history, only for her to further neglect them? Now, the person who posted this is female, and it's in a relationship with the father in question.
Mm-hmm.
Clementine's response. But why would I offer a comprehensive response to absolute nonsense? The girl's response said, Clementine Ford, absurd. My only personal experience is over 6 years of having 3 children abused by their mother because the judge was biased. POS is what you call it. Absurd. Wow. Clementine Ford said, personally, I think those kids are lucky they aren't being forced to spend time with an ignorant twit like you. Again, I think you're lying. If your husband was denied access to his kids, there was a good reason and they're better off. The girl replied, for a feminist, you're really great at promoting bullying towards any female who doesn't agree with your false narrative. I think you might want to drop the label. You're not a feminist. You're a nasty piece of work. Anyone who won't listen to a story about children who have been abused of the bias system really doesn't deserve time of day. I'm sorry that child abuse is okay with you as long as it's at the hands of the mother.
As we always say, feminists are all about women's choices as long as they're the right choices.
Yeah, but it's like she's right. Here's all the evidence. The children would be better off with the father. And Clementine Ford's response was, you're lying. And obviously the kids are going to be better off with the mother who's abused them, done heroin in front of them, all this sort of stuff. No child is better off than that.
Exactly. And what's really unfortunate, I think, is that the closure of the family courts in Australia mean that there's no oversight. Nobody can review the decisions. We're not allowed to know what went on in that case. Perhaps other people who are attending the court in the day may be there, but no recordings aren't allowed, and publication of that information isn't allowed. And that is a huge part of the problem, I think, the fact that there's really no oversight with Australian family courts.
We've always said this. It's like the Red Heart campaign gives out correct statistics as far as people who've been killed by violence, not by domestic violence, by violence that year. The statistics they give out is 100% correct. And they give out for males also. I will admit that. And that's run by Another one of my favorites. If you can't tell, I've still got all my hair. But it's on the female side. DVAA also gives out correct statistics of people that have been murdered due to domestic violence only. But they are more on the male side. So each one of these pages has not, they both give out the right statistics for violence. One is domestic violence, one is all violence, but they both support either male or female, one or the other. So not one's worse off than the other. But DVA is the one that constantly gets bashed.
Yes. And moreover, I suggest that DVAA is, it does spend a lot of its time talking about male victims of domestic and intimate partner violence, but that, I think, is a matter of necessity. And we both know the people behind that organisation, and I think that really is just a very pragmatic view on their part, that they would, if it was the other way and it was women's, violence against women that was being ignored, then I think they'd be out there too, talking about that.
Yeah, they're not doing it. They've said several times they're not affiliated with men's rights in any way, shape, or form.
I am.
Me too. They are just bringing to the forefront what gets ignored.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Which, by the way, I would also say is the motivation of the majority of MRAs, in actual fact. And I've often thought if I lived at a different time, I may well have been fighting for the rights of women, for example.
Yeah, of course. And a lot of higher ups is the wrong word, but a lot of the men in MRAs that are more on the forefront and are more famous have fought for women's rights in the past.
That's true. Warren Farrell was on the board of the National Organisation for Women.
Yeah.
And he actually, it was interesting that he was actually booted out of the organisation when he started to raise, or off the board at least, when he started to raise concerns about misandry that was being exhibited by the organisation. And unfortunately, so it sounds like there for a while there were more moderates involved, and then the extremists got involved. But yes, that's right, and that's actually quite true of a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, I said to a friend of mine the other day, and she's more on the women's rights side, I'm obviously more on the men's issue side, that I said, if an MRA says you're a cafe feminist, that's actually a compliment.
So you're saying they're not extremists. That's true, and I've seen MRA say that, and not meaning any offence at all, and feminists get quite offended by it.
Yeah, trust me. If anyone from this side calls you a cafe feminist and you consider yourself a feminist, take it as a compliment. They are not insulting you. They actually have respect for you.
It's as close to as a compliment as we're going to get, anyway.
Yeah. This is a sign of respect to say we actually understand what you're fighting for, and we support what you're fighting for. As long as you're not, as a cafe feminist, we understand that. As an extremist, like Clementine Ford and Shirley Moody. I don't know how I was getting her name mixed up.
My view of cafe feminists are they're certainly not extremists by any means.
No.
The vast majority of cafe feminists I've met, I would suggest, are not very well read on feminism, and whenever I encounter cafe feminists, I just encourage them to read up on feminism.
And this friend of mine and I talked about it, and we are very much similar. We are fighting for the same things. She agrees 100% with everything I'm fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
And as we both, all of us can agree, there's extremists on either side.
Yeah. I always like to say the question is, what do you do with them? What does a movement, every movement has extremists, what does that movement do with them? And I would suggest that we tend to push them to the side. And unfortunately, with feminism, many of them are in very prominent roles.
Exactly. Now, we've got, we're just gone over 15 minutes. So I quickly want to say this one before we go. So I've spoken very highly about the play Marooned. I have personally seen it 3 times. I've seen it with 2 different casts. I saw it again a few weeks ago.
And we've had the playwright Michael on the show.
Yeah. And so one of the the female actress in the play, or actor, depending on what narrative you want, and her husband Michael, who wrote the play, we've had on the show before. Him and I had a conversation after it. The 3rd time I saw Marooned, actually no, I'll talk about Marooned first. So if nobody knows what it's about, it is basically 3 men and 1 woman in this waiting room. They've all attempted suicide and not succeeded. And they're trying to figure out how they get back, because they all regret it. And Michael came up with the play after a friend of his killed himself, but the thought process of it was also from a gentleman who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and changed his mind halfway down. And he survived. Wow. One of the very few survivors to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. And he survived. And so it's like the weight's been lifted off your shoulders. Now, what we can say is that 75% of all successful suicides are male. Mm-hmm. So the statistics in the play is correct. 3 men, 1 woman. And it's all about, and they've all got different issues. They've all did it for different reasons. And you find that out within the play. This, as depressing as it sounds, it's a play that needs to be seen by everybody. It's a play that is not as depressing as it sounds when it comes to the subject of suicide.
And full disclosure, I haven't seen it yet, but I believe it may be coming to Queensland soon.
Yeah, so I do believe it's going to be touring around. It is, if you're in Melbourne, it's playing at the Alex Theatre in St Kilda on Friday.
Great.
So, yeah, if you're in Melbourne, go and see it. But even Marooned has been attacked by the feminists. When somebody posted to Marooned, white men are not the bleep, and I'm going to assume that's the F word. White men are not the stories that need to be told. Your presence is not welcome in Australian theatre.
Like I said, they use the language of inclusion, but they're really all about exclusion.
Yeah.
You listen to them a lot of the time, they talk about how being inclusive and so forth, but it's really about exclusion.
It's got nothing to do with the skin color of these gentlemen. In the play, and I can give this away, they don't have names. They've just got a number. So you don't know their names. As long as it's 3 men and a woman, and they're all a different type of characters, but characters you recognize as the young guy in it has got huge anxiety, and you can see that all the way through it. There's obviously like an office gentleman that has worked in an office all of his life, and then you got the Aussie bloke, larrikin type of guy, and then you got this very hoity-toity, for lack of a better term, female who is very independent in her life. So it's got all the characters. It needs to be 3 men and a woman for the statistics. But the skin color of each of these characters is irrelevant. The gender is relevant for the statistics. The skin color, the nationality is irrelevant because these are characters we all recognize in a teenager, in an office worker, and in the Aussie truck driver, in your blue collar worker. So this was posted to Marooned, I think it was yesterday or the day before. And it's like, what part doesn't have to be told? What part of stopping suicide needs to be stopped? Like, are you kidding
It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, when I first saw it, there was actually a woman there whose son committed suicide. She's got a foundation, and oh my God, I forget her name. I'm so stupid. I'll post it up. But she's got this foundation going in her son's name, and she was there to talk to people who might have been triggered about it when they came out. Whenever you see Marooned, everybody meets out after it. People hang around after the play. They're done or just bugger off and go home. Apparently these theatres have never seen this, and it was like, no, we don't need the bar open. And it was like, oh God, yeah. After seeing it the first time, it's like, yeah, we need the bar open.
Right.
This type of thing. To actually say we don't need this, it's got nothing to do.
That's awful.
With the gender, it's got nothing to do with the color of these people's skin. It's a subject that needs to be talked about, and you need to take the stigma off it.
But that's at the very basis of what SJWs believe, and to a large extent what feminism now believes, and so forth. It's all about identity politics, which is about putting people in little boxes based on their gender and based on the color of their skin and those sorts of things. It's just ridiculous. It's a very simplistic way of looking at the world. And it leads to prejudice. It really does.
So this is going to lead us into the end of the show because we've gone way over time, but I did want to bring that up. So I've seen 2 of Michael's plays. I've seen The Magnolia Tree, and I've seen a cast reading of a new play he's got coming out. Now, on the 3 plays I've seen, I'll include the new one the one that's just been written as a play that I've seen. He does like to touch on the things that we shouldn't talk about. And he does like to remove the stigma. So The Magnolia Tree was about... actually, I'll let him talk about it. But on the cast reading of his new play, Real, I won't talk about the subject matter, but it's got 4 actors in it, 2 men, 2 women. And one of the actors who's in it is John Orchik. I think that's how we pronounced his name.
I believe so, yes.
If anybody used to watch Cop Shop, he played Mike, the detective. In Australia, he's one of those faces that we know. So it's either going to be next week or the following week. We're going to have Michael back on the show to talk about Real, but we're also going to have John Orchik on the show.
And as someone who did watch Cop Shop, I'm really looking forward to talking to him. I mean, I'm out anyway, but I really am for that perspective as well.
And so I don't want to talk about Real. I want to leave that up to Michael. I have seen the cast reading. This is going to be one of those ones that blow your mind once you see it. I can, without being able to talk about the storyline, it is something that we need to talk about. That's all I'm going to say. Michael can discuss the rest. I am looking forward to talking to John because I fell in love with his character I really did. I wanted to give him a big hug after it. He was just, even in the cast reading, he was brilliant. And we were talking earlier, is even though they were still acting the part, they weren't performing because they were just up on a little stage and they had a little stand for the scripts and they were just reading there, sitting down if they weren't in that particular scene and then standing up and reading the lines. But he still had a bit of performance in his part that, as little as it was, somebody like me who loves to be the fly on the wall and soak everything in noticed it. It was playing on me until it came out what that tiny little thing was there for. So he's just, you fall in love with him and understand him and the way he is, and he performed the whole part, even though it was just the cast reading.
Yeah, fabulous. Looking forward to talking to Michael again and John.
Yeah, so that's either going to be on next week or the following week. We're hoping for next week.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. I think that's us.
Yeah, we've got 10 minutes over, but I wanted to get that John or Chick thing out.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Nat.
Okay, thanks. Click like, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm. Have fun, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Okay, bye.